God. Use the weak to lead the strong. You use the weak to lead the strong. You lead us in the song. You lead us in the song of your salvation. And all your people. And all your people sing along. So remember. So remember your people. Remember your children. Remember your promise, oh God, your grace. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough for me. Your grace. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough for me. See your grace. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough for me. For me. Alright, hopefully you guys know this one, Jesus Messiah. He became sin, who knew no sin, that we might become his righteousness. He humbled himself, and he carried the cross. Love so amazing, love so amazing, yeah. Jesus Messiah, the name above all names, blessed Redeemer, Emmanuel, the rescue for sinners, the ransom from heaven. declare that you are the Lord of all. We thank you that you've given us access. Lord, the veil is now torn, and we have access, Lord, to enter into your holy place. So now as we, Lord, bring our questions, Lord, to your word, would you give us, Lord, out of your word, truth? And we ask that you would speak through Pastor Brandon. Lord, you'd give him your spirit to guide him and direct him. We ask all this in your name, Lord. Amen.
All right, thank you, Jeremy. That was awesome, man. Great voice. Hey, good to be with you guys. We had to skip September. We wanted to do one in September, but I had conferences and I was traveling and stuff, so I couldn't do it. And so we definitely wanted to make sure we do it this month, and we're going to do it next month, and try to do one of these get-togethers once a month, hopefully. And again, just spending time with you guys, and then being able to have you guys bring your questions, because a lot of times you're in this formal setting, you're on Sunday morning, and then, of course, Jeremy's teaching his class on Sunday, and sometimes you don't get a chance to get all your questions answered because you're hearing the preaching, and Jeremy's got a lesson, and I'm preaching, and so...
I don't have the answers.
And Jeremy, yeah. So we just thought, let's just make a venue. Is it getting too cold in here, or are you guys okay? You're all good? Okay. To just make a chance to, hey, if you got something on your mind, let's try to tackle it as much as we can, because we would rather you get the information that's right, because a lot of times people are getting their information on the internet, and they're getting it, and you don't know the sources sometimes on the internet. Where is that coming from? Who said that? And so there's a lot of junk out there that are bombarding you guys, especially on social media. And so we wanted to make sure that, if something comes up, and you're going to see trends out there, man. There's some crazy stuff trending right now. And if you don't have the right voices listening to you can get swayed by that stuff. So we just want to make this available to you. And then, obviously we're going to be doing some events together and hanging out and stuff like that. I think Rory said he had something going on in his house in a while. And then the Ogdens are with us. I don't know if you've met them, but they're planning to maybe have some events where maybe we just do a campfire, bonfire type of thing, and we all hang out and eat and have a good time. And so we just want to just make sure that we love you, and we're hanging out with you, and we want to be with you, and because you're in a difficult time right now. You're in your 20s, maybe your 30s right now, and you're making a lot of decisions right now, life decisions, big decisions, man. Like, hey, what kind of career am I going to do? Who am I going to marry? That kind of thing. Am I going to have kids? All that, those types of things. That sets the course for a lot of things, man. And so you're at that time. So if we can lean in on that, some of us are older people. We've went through the school of hard knocks, and we've learned sometimes the hard way. We'll be the first to tell you, man. It's tough. So anyway, I wanted to open it up now. If you have any questions, and no matter what you want to go into, relational theology, apologetics, whatever you guys want to tackle, anything. We're dealing with a lot of stuff. I will say this. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Mine's pretty light. You got a mic. So
Let's get a mic on him. Here we go.
Hello.
There you go.
Hi. So my name is Anselmo, or I go by Mo. Makes it easier. I guess one of the things I find most fascinating in the Bible is the Nephilim.
Yeah.
The Nephilim, and then also I think kind of if I can make a connection. Also, what I'm seeing on the news with aliens and stuff.
Totally.
And then how this is just a theory, and I don't know how much you were maybe because I've talked to other Christians, and this is kind of it's not just me seeing this, but the discernment is if they're talking about aliens. This is a wild theory in regards to the rapture, and Christians are taking up. Are they going to use the alien thing as a means for deception? And if they are, does that mean then there's going to be Christians that are going to be staying here, and then they're going to go through the Great Tribulation? You know what I'm saying? So, because I believe that there is going to be Christians staying here, Great Tribulation. Revelation talks about one of the churches. I'm going to keep them from the hour that's coming.
Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's coming upon the whole world. So it makes me think, there's a lot of connections, especially what we're seeing. That film, Aliens, though, but it makes sense. So.
Dude, you're right on target, man. And if you guys are tracking with them, that is exactly what's getting set up right now to explain away supernatural activity. Let's go first back to Genesis 6. Let's deal with the Nephilim, and then let's bring it into today. So if you're familiar with Genesis 6, chapter 6, 1 through 4, talks about a situation. It's one of the big issues that happened in the Old Testament when some angels, fallen angels, under Satan's leadership, decided to corrupt the genetic code of humans. And the main reason they were doing this is because they knew the promise that God made to Eve, that the seed of the woman will one day destroy or crush the head of the serpent. And so Satan, in his thinking, thought, well, if he's going to be human, I'll destroy that. And so what ended up happening in Genesis 6, if you're familiar with it, like he's pointing out, is that fallen angels decided to interbreed with human women. And it created, like he talked about, Nephilim. And Nephilim in Hebrew means fallen ones. And the reason they were given fallen ones is because there's no salvation for these hybrids. They were hybrid creatures. And you guys, when you were in high school, do you remember that you studied like Greek mythology and you studied even other mythologies, Roman mythology, and you had Zeus and Poseidon and Venus and Cupid and all of these. And then you had these weird minotaurs and centaurs. There's an element of truth in that. In fact, most ancient cultures, Aztecs, Mayans, Egypt, Celtics, all over the world, have these ancient myth stories where there were demigods, where there were half animal, half human, had supernatural power like Hercules and things of that nature. Well, what you start realizing is there's an element of truth in all these ancient cultures that they are talking about what happened in Genesis. And it created a hybrid situation. So they weren't demigods. They were basically half angel and half human. But they had the supernatural powers that angels had, and intelligence and all this other stuff. Well, let me dig a little bit further. If you go to Second Temple literature that was around in Jesus' day, and what did the Jews understand? Well, they understood that First Enoch, and First Enoch is not biblical, but it is historical. And when you look at First Enoch, it gives a little bit more information about what was happening. So here's the information. Again, I'm not saying it's biblical, I'm just saying this is the background information. So these angels that decided to do this, Satan convinced them to do this. There's about 200 of them according to First Enoch. And they decided that, okay, let's interbreed with the humans and let's mess up the line of the Messiah. And what they started doing is, in order to get these daughters of men to copulate with them, is they traded information to their fathers. That's what First Enoch says. And so they were given technology. They were given how to do magic with roots and plants. And the kinds of plants like psychedelics that people use today. They were doing that because that tapped them into the occult world. They taught them how to get into the occult world, how to make contact with that. And so when you see the most popular program right now is Ancient Aliens, just like you're mentioning. Because they'll talk about, well, where did these people in the ancient world get this technology? You understand that some of the technology we can't even duplicate today. We are not at that level, but yet in the ancient world they have that ability. Where did they get it? Well, First Enoch says that the angels were giving them that kind of information. Fallen angels, not good angels, fallen angels. And they were trading that information and sorcery. And that's where paganism comes from. That's where witchcraft comes from, and the occult, and how to tap into that world. And so everything was just going berserk, man. And that is one of the main reasons for Noah's flood, because it got so bad the genetic code was getting tampered with on humans and animals. Because notice in Noah's flood, remember that God sent the animals that were still pure to Noah. And the other animals died because what was happening is that you had a hybrid situation, and the animals were even tainted with this. So anyway, my point is they were given secret information. A hybrid situation was going on, and it was coming from fallen angels. Okay, so let's bring it to today. Well, the same occurrence is starting to happen, not producing hybrids. There's a variation of the transgender movement and transhumanism movement, but not the same as Genesis 6. But what is the same is the fact that fallen angels have now really been putting themselves out there as far as being visible. And it's been happening, guess what, since the mid-40s or even late 40s, 1948, 1947. And you think, why? Why has all of a sudden we're starting to see things in the skies? And like everyone that sees something in the sky doesn't mean they're seeing a UFO. But there are legitimate things that we're seeing. And in fact, our U.S. Navy is picking these things up on radar, right? And our pilots are interacting with these things, okay? And they're saying they're aliens or whatever. But the problem is they're not aliens. They're fallen angels. And fallen angels can manifest physicality in our world and can appear as anything they want. Fallen angels and demons are shapeshifters. That means they can take on any shape physically they want to. If they want to look like a goblin, they can look like a goblin. If they want to look like an angel of light, they can look like an angel of light. If they want to look like an animal, they can look like an animal. They're shapeshifters. So what they're doing right now is appearing to us in the form that makes us most afraid. And the form that makes our world the most afraid is the alien thing. The fact that if you go back in the ancient cultures, like in the Middle Ages, how did fallen angels and demons appear to people? Well, they appeared to them as trolls. And we're getting ready to people are going to celebrate Halloween. But what was behind Halloween? They were doing Halloween to thwart the bad spirits. Trolls, witches, goblins, all those mythical creatures that's what scared that culture in those days. And so that's how demons manifested and that's how fallen angels manifested. Well, today, that doesn't scare our population. So what scares our population? Creatures from another galaxy that have advanced technology that can harm us. That's what scares the modern world. So now they were appearing as such. And they've been appearing a lot, by the way. And again, going on our radar. And then the Pentagon comes out in 2017 and says, yeah, we know all about this. And then you have even the Pentagon and people that have worked for the Pentagon saying, yes, when we have supposed craft and we have been able to reverse engineer some of these things. And so now the United States that in Black Ops says that they have the ability to have vehicles that are anti-gravity. And you're like, where did they get that from? Where did they get this technology? So, why because you're hitting on a good point. Why, since the 40s, has this been happening? Something happened in 1948 that was a huge prophetic marker. You know what that is? Israel returned back as being a nation again in 1948. Dude, when you see that happen, that was one of the big prophecies that we were waiting for like 2,000 years. God had said it, he's going to regather Israel in the last days, and he did. And it's a sign that all Christians see, we all understand that, and it means that you're living in the last days, and God is getting ready to work again with the nation of Israel, and he is. But what do the demons know? And fallen angels, they know full well what that means too. It means their time is short. And it means they got to get busy. Because they know what the book of Revelation says, what Daniel says, just as good as you and I do. And they know how the thing's going to play out. So guess what they have to do? They have to create a false narrative. Because what is going to happen? You're going to have the rapture. You have the disappearance of Bible-believing Christians taken to heaven as promised. How are they going to explain that away? Well, I can already tell you how they're going to explain it away. There are people who are necromancers, or we call them psychics or mediums. And, you know, sometimes they're at the Kern County Fair, but there's people that do this for a profession, and really they're channeling demons. So there's a great book, if you're interested, by Chuck Missler that came out in the 90s. It's called Alien Invasion. Anyway, he recorded what these necromancers were saying, and of course they didn't think they were channeling demons. They thought they were channeling people from the future, or avatars, or some higher being or alien or whatever. And here's what the demons were saying. Check this out. This is crazy. They said, eventually there's going to be the disappearance of 2 billion people. And what this is aliens taking them from this earth because they're holding back Mother Earth's evolution. That's what they said, okay? Follow. This is demon logic, okay? This is what they're channeling. And they said it's these people that have really stopped the spiritual progression of Gaia, or Mother Earth, and holding everybody back spiritually. And so these are the bad people. And so what are the aliens going to do? Well, they're going to beam them up, and they're going to disappear. But don't worry, they're going to take them to another planet and re-educate them. Dead serious. This is what they've said. Channeling demons. Okay, so you can see the false narrative being built up here, right? So we're going to take the bad people away. They're going to be beamed up in smaller ships, and then the other ships are going to give them to the mothership and take them to another planet. Then they said there's a second phase. The second phase is when children disappear. The fallen angels pretending to be aliens said, yeah, and don't be surprised when the children are taken away. The children are going to be taken away, and we're going to use them to repopulate other planets and create another, human race on another planet. But don't be afraid, don't cry, or be sad for them, because they're being used for a greater purpose, and they're going to be used in that sense. Now, question. Let me stop there. Why do you think they added the children to it? Because here's the thing. Until a child reaches the age of accountability, and we don't know what that age of accountability is where God holds the person responsible. Maybe it's 8, maybe it's 10, maybe it's 12, we don't know. But God knows when that child's responsible, when they know things. We know that babies and children would be raptured. That's what God would do. He would take them home with them. He would not let them go through the tribulation period, because they're innocent. They don't know anything. They haven't committed sin knowingly. That's what God holds people accountable, is when they knowingly do things. And so they're unaccountable, so they would be raptured. So isn't it interesting that the fallen angels had a story about the disappearance of children? So this is all chronicled in the things they say, and they continue to say. If you talk to a New Ager, someone that's in the New Age, this is part and parcel their mentality. They believe aliens are going to take them. Aliens put us here. Aliens were our creators, and that they're going to now save the planet from the bad people. So guess who the bad people are? Christians. So the Christians are the bad people. So you see, this whole narrative has been flipped. Now, let's go to the book of Revelation. And I'm belaboring this, but if I looked at the whole book of Revelation and I see all the supernatural events that are going to happen in the future that God's bringing to this earth, what if I just saw it from a purely secular standpoint and I didn't see supernatural God's power? I could see the tribulation as alien invasion, and that all the supernatural things that are happening are advanced technology destroying our planet. The water turning to blood, earthquakes, cosmic disturbances. They could easily say these are all coming from aliens, and we're under alien attack. Now, in Revelation 9, the veil between the physical and the spiritual is removed. And in Revelation 9, guess what? Demon locusts are allowed to start attacking people. And they physically can see them. You can see the description in Revelation 9. And then 200 million demons are released. And they go and attack and kill a third of humanity at that time. So they're not going to say these are demons or fallen angels. They're going to say, oh, these are aliens or hybrids, Nephilim or whatever it is. And that's what we're under attack. And so guess who they'll think will be their savior? It won't be Jesus, they'll say. It'll be the Antichrist. It's the Antichrist that'll save us. Now, one more thing to add to this. Remember I said in 1 Enoch, it talked about that these fallen angels were giving high technology to human beings. And they were coming up with advanced technology that we have never seen before. Interesting enough, I'll give you another glimpse of this. I'm going to interview a guy that works on Noah's Ark in Turkey right now. Noah's Ark is in Turkey. They've already found it. And he works right there at the site where Noah's Ark is found. Noah's Ark, the technology on it is the same matching of what Genesis says about the ark. It's the same size, everything. It's amazing. But they have done studies on it, and they found rivets that Noah used in the ark. Now, here's the interesting thing. They found titanium in the rivets. And you think, what's the big deal about that? We didn't discover titanium until like 150 years ago. And yet, Noah's Ark has titanium in it. Where did they get the technology for that? It shows you that even pre-flood, they had such advanced technology way beyond ours that we have no idea. Noah's Ark, the size and shape of it, is unsinkable the way he designed it. And obviously God gave him some of the measurements, but he didn't give him all the measurements. And you talk to anyone that's been in the Navy, anyone that's been in shipbuilding, they say that design is unsinkable from a technological standpoint. Where did they get this technology? Okay. Noah obviously had the technology of his day. He didn't get it from fallen angels, but that's where it was coming from, okay? Now let me go to today. The guys in Silicon Valley that are designing a lot of the internet stuff, the AI, all this other stuff that you're seeing, advanced technology, right? So advanced, it's going to get away from them. They cannot control AI. Eventually, AI will reach a point where it's thinking on its own. They've already had problems with AI and not being able to shut it down. It already created its own language, and it was communicating with other AIs. It's a major problem. And they're creating monsters that they can't control. But here's the thing, where did they get the technology ideas from? Because it's just recently come in the last 15, 20 years. We've advanced. Here's what they say. The guys in Silicon Valley are doing psychedelics. They're doing mushrooms, and they're going into an altered state of consciousness. So guess what ends up happening in that world? You enter the spiritual realm. And when you're in the spiritual realm, guess what these guys are coming in contact with? Other beings. And these beings, as you and I know, are fallen angels and demons. But they think they're avatars. They think there's people from the future. And they're downloading information to them. So what they're telling them is like, they're saying that these creatures will just download information into their brain. And then they go and implement it as far as technology. You guys are aware of Apple, right? I have an Apple phone. Do you have an Apple phone? Maybe you don't. Maybe you do. But you're aware of Macintosh. You're aware of Steve Jobs, who created Apple, aren't you? Everyone should be. You know what gave him the idea to create Apple and Macintosh? He said he was having dreams where beings would come to him and give him information of how to develop Apple and Macintosh. And then what he would do is go into the office the next day and implement them and create Apple, create Macintosh. That's what he admitted. Now, Steve Jobs is not a believer. I think he was a Buddhist or something like that, right? But he was getting downloads of information and he was applying them. What's the symbol? I don't have mine. Do you know what the symbol is for Apple?
Big fruit.
It's an apple with a bite out of it. And why is that?
True knowledge.
It goes back to Genesis. It's the forbidden fruit that Eve and Adam took a bite out of. It's not a mistake that Steve Jobs made that his icon for Apple. It was the forbidden fruit. He was introducing technology. So anyway, long story short, that's the answer to that, Mo. So great question. Great question. You're thinking, brother. Anyway, go ahead. You got a follow-up.
Oh, no, yeah, I just...
Go ahead.
I was going to add on to that. So...
Like, I was thinking, so this goes back, talking back on Nephilim again. So, like, I know, like, and I agree with you, like, Nephilim is, like, half demon, half human. But I'm thinking to myself, well, if the flood killed everything, right? Does that mean then that it only killed, like, the half human, but their spirit, the demon part of them, it's still roaming the earth? Because that would make a lot of sense.
Dude, you're all over this.
As far as, like, why I'm still, the Nephilim, because they're the giants, right? Because even Moses' time, they saw giants, even
they came back.
But that's my thing, like, so does that mean that the Nephilim survived it?
No, what ended up happening, they were all killed, but you're absolutely right. That's the difference between an angel, a fallen angel, and a demon. A demon is a disembodied spirit from a Nephilim. And so that's why it's different. That's why demons want to possess. It's because now they had a body at one time. They were Nephilims.
Right.
And now they're disembodied because they were killed physically, but they're spiritless and they're a demon. That's what we call a demon. They're different. Fallen angels do not want to possess. That's not their gig. They can manifest the body. It's demons that want to possess. Demons, by the way, hate water. Why is that? Because they were killed by water. So when Legion met Jesus, and Jesus goes, "Who are you?" And he goes, "We are Legion." And they are, "Have you come to torment before the appointed time, Son of God?" And then what did Jesus do? He said, "Go." They requested to go into the pigs rather than into the pit. So he sent them into the pigs, but as a penalty, what did he do? He allowed the pigs to drive them off into the Sea of Galilee, into the water, which they hate. They hate water. And he said demons look for arid places and deserts because they hate water. Now, fallen angels have no problem with water. That's why you'll see fallen angels go in and out of the water with our Navy. But demons don't. Okay, so you're hitting on a good point. What happened? It happened again. So if you read Genesis 6, 1 through 4, it says, and afterwards it happened again, and it happened in the land of Canaan to prevent Israel from coming in. So by the time Joshua gets in there, he's dealing with giant clans. Okay, here's the interesting thing. A lot of people don't know how to answer this. They say, there's some times when Joshua's going into the land and God says, I want you to kill everybody. Men, women, children, animals, and then burn everything. Do not take anything from that area. Now, he'll only do it to selective tribes. In other situations, he'll say, drive them out. But then when God says, harem them, totally wipe them out. Why? Because they were hybrids. They were not fully human. And that explains the harem on certain villages because they were dealing with giants. Right. Goliath had, 4 brothers, and David's dealing with Goliath. Goliath's a hybrid. He's a Nephilim. And he was, 9 feet tall or something like that? Okay, now here's the question. The penalty for that is any angel that does that is put into Tartarus until the Great White Throne Judgment. So we don't see that today. But we do have a hint that there might be one more coming. One. We do have a hint. And who do you think that might be? It's the Antichrist. The Antichrist might be a full-fledged Nephilim. How do we get that? Because he's the seed of the serpent. That's singular in Genesis. And he is killed, but then he resurrects from the abuso, the pit. Now, what's the big deal about that? Humans, when they go to hell, they go to the bottomless pit. But humans do not go to the abuso, the pit. Only fallen angels go to the pit. And yet he resurrects from the pit, and yet he's called the seed of Satan. So some clues there that we might see one more final Nephilim, and it could be the Antichrist possibility. Okay, now I think I exhausted that. Okay. But good question. You're thinking, dude. You're all over that, man. Okay, where are we at? Yeah, go for it. Yeah, what was it?
Hey Brandon, my name is Jose.
Yeah.
I'll give you my background before asking my question.
Great.
So every Monday, I always visit my parents. We always have these conversations every Monday. I always talk about work, everything. So my background is I worked in law enforcement for 3 years, but the conversation I never really would want to tell them is during my first 2 years, I ended up getting hurt 3 separate occasions. I had to be put out from work for 2 weeks, but then when my parents would ask me like, "Oh, when aren't you working?" I just tell them like, "Oh, I'm on vacation," but I just don't ever want them to worry about me. The things I do at work, I love it. I love what I do. But my question is, do I continue to not tell them the truth?
So let me ask you this: why would you keep that from them? Are you just afraid that they'll get too worried about you, or what?
I just don't want them to worry about me at all.
Okay.
The only folks that knows it is just my sister. My sister only.
And so you're getting hurt at the job, then, basically, and you don't want to tell them that.
Correct.
Okay. So my thing is you never go wrong with being honest. Okay, so you always want to be truthful. There's sometimes you want to keep things from some people, you don't want to disclose it, and there are times when those. But if this is going to be ongoing, you're better off. You're going to have to reveal that if it's going to be ongoing. You know, if it's like a one-time thing, then yeah, I don't.
Yeah, it was just a one-time thing.
Okay.
It's 3 separate occasions.
Okay, but if here's what I would say. There's sometimes you want to protect people from things, and I get that. And so telling the truth doesn't always mean you disclose everything, you vomit everything. You know, there's things you got to understand, you know, maybe my parents can't take it or somebody. And so I'll tell them a little bit or whatever, but I don't disclose everything. But I would say this, Jose, if it continues to happen, the excuse of I'm on vacation ain't going to work eventually. You know what I mean? The cat's going to come out of the bag. Now, 1 or 2 times you can keep that from them. And again, you're not trying to be deceitful. You're just trying to not disclose. I don't want them to worry about me and stuff like that. But I would say this, going forward, if it happens multiple times again and you're like, hey man, you're going to have to tell them. And then, you know, eventually, if you get married, you're going to have to tell your spouse what's going on because, you know, and your kid, you're going to have kids and they're going to worry about you. But here's the thing. Why would it benefit somebody to know that that's happening to you from a psychological, mental standpoint? I'll explain why. People can handle more if you tell them what's going on versus when it comes out of left field. I'm getting feedback. Let me explain this. When, like, someone gets in a car accident and they get the phone call, hey, your son or daughter has been in an accident and it's really hard and they may not survive, it traumatizes people. Versus you being told that your grandfather has cancer, he's got maybe 3 years to live, and then what happens there is you actually can mentally prepare for that. Versus when it comes out of left field. So eventually, as a father, what you have to do is prepare people mentally that you could be hurt. You're in law enforcement. You're risking your life. And even like eventually the person you marry, she's going to have to realize, hey, this guy can get shot. This guy can get beat up or something. Because you're going to have to mentally prepare them for that. So right now, you know, you can get away with it, but you're better off eventually mentally preparing people because let's pretend another thing happens and all of a sudden you're in a coma and you can't talk and you're in the hospital and like, well, what happened to him? I didn't know this was going on. It'll be worse psychologically for your parents because it'll come out of left field. Versus he's had trouble before, yeah, and this is the risk he takes. And so it actually creates a more expectation, and they can handle it better. So I would tell you on that point, from a psychological, it's better to prepare people for what's coming. I'll give you an example, a simple example. If any of you guys go and have surgery, your doctor's going to say, he's going to come into the office, and he's going to say, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this, and then after that, I'm going to do that, and then after this, I'm going to do that, and it's going to take you 5 days to recover, and it's going to do. And why does the doctor tell you that? Because he's preparing you mentally for what to expect. And they find out that when you tell somebody before they have surgery that this is what we're going to do, they actually can handle it better versus not telling them anything. So more information is better than less information. In any relationship, by the way, more information is better. The more people know, the more they can actually handle it. I'll give you another example. How does God prepare Israel to come into the promised land about what's going to happen? He tells them, when you get into the land, here's what's going to go down. You're going to have this. He talks about sexual immorality. He talks about the paganism. You're going to encounter all of this. And what is that? This is important for all of you that are going to have kids. Do not make the mistake of hiding what's going on in the world from your kids. The best thing that you see God do is he tells them, this is there, that's there, that's there, that's there. And what is God doing? He's preparing them. So how do you prepare your kids? Do not put them in a bubble. Do not say, well, I'm going to shield them from everything, and I'm not going to tell them how bad the world is. No. Do the opposite. Say the world is really bad, and here's what's going on. And you know what? Kids who know that information handle it way better. Because then, think about this. I've seen parents raise kids. They put them in a bubble, and then they get to be 18, and then they unleash them. And guess what happens? They're like, I didn't know everyone's this mean. I didn't know everyone's this evil. What? And they're like naive, and they're being conned. And it's like, well, haven't you have been on the playground? Don't you understand that there's a lot of people you shouldn't trust? I didn't know people were like that. And like thrown to the wolves. Don't do that. Information prepares people. Anyway, good question. That's awesome, Jose. Yeah, we're going. Back there.
Hello. I had a question on the Psalms 82.
Okay. 82?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I just wanted to dig into that.
What's your question on it, man?
It's seldom talked about, to be honest. Shoot, man, I actually just learned about it not too long ago, and all my life going to church, it has apparently passed me by.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? So many topics like that, people don't want to talk about because it makes them uncomfortable a little bit.
Yeah.
So, let me read that for you guys, real quick. God stands in the congregation of the mighty, he judges among the gods. How long will you judge unjustly and show partiality to the wicked, defend the poor and the fatherless? Do justice to the afflicted and the needy, deliver the poor and needy, free them from the hand of the wicked. Who's he talking to? He's talking to the judges among the gods. They do not know, nor do they understand. They walk about in darkness, all the foundations of the earth are unstable. I said you are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High. But you who die like men, fall like one of the princes. Arise, O God, judge the other, for you shall inherit all the nations. Yeah?
I wanted to show you this real quick.
Go ahead.
So this is a book from someone who had passed away. He is
Michael Heisner, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I love Michael.
Yes, sir.
It's great. So you've been reading about the Divine Council?
Yes.
Awesome. Let's talk about it, man. Totally. I love it. So Michael Heisner, he has passed away. He, great theologian, and I'm glad you're reading him. Good for you. This is highbrow stuff, man. How'd you get your hands on that, man?
I came across his videos not too long ago.
Michael's fantastic. I love Michael.
Yeah, sadly I learned he had passed away 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
So, if you guys are interested, Michael Heisner really brings out a lot of what was going on in the Old Testament, especially we talked about the Nephilim and things of that nature, but the divine council. So what you're seeing in Psalm 82 is what's called the divine council. And this goes back to the Deuteronomy 32 mindset. Michael Heisner was real big on that, and he made that very, very pronounced. And a lot of theologians don't want to talk about it because it gets uncomfortable. Okay, let's talk about that. What do you mean? The term Elohim in the Bible can refer to God, and when it refers to God, it's a plural being used as a singular. But in other times, spirit creatures are called Elohims as well. So it talks about the gods. When you see the word the gods in Hebrew, it's Elohim, which means plural, gods. So the spirit creatures that God made, we call them angels, but that's probably not the right vernacular for them. The right vernacular is called them Elohims, or gods. It doesn't mean they're God ontologically, like God is, but that they're spirit creatures from that spiritual realm. Now, there's seraphim, there's cherubim, there's messengers, there's different categories, right? But they're called Elohims, okay. So, according to what Michael Heisner is saying in Psalm 82, it seems to be indicating, and I agree with Michael Heisner, that at the Tower of Babel, and if you read that God scattered the nations at the Tower of Babel, also Deuteronomy 32 will say that he divided up the world according to, and the mistranslation is the sons of Israel. Well, there was no sons of Israel during the Tower of Babel. The correct translation comes from the Dead Sea Scrolls, which is Bana Elohim, the sons of God. And so what God did at the Tower of Babel is he divided the nations according to their language, right? But then assigned them these Elohims that were over those nations to govern them, okay? As an under-ruler under God. Now, that's not hard to understand, that God has hierarchies, and he basically put these individual nations under that. And so what Michael Heisner says, and what Psalm 82 says when you're reading it, is that they corrupted their rulership over those nations. And instead of doing the right things, as God's trying to point out, they didn't do the right things, and they misled them and led them down the wrong path. And so they're going to be judged for that. And so, again, that's more of a Deuteronomy 32 mindset, and you have to understand that goes with the Tower of Babel. But, look, more evidence that there are rulerships, not only under God, but even under Satan, is Daniel chapter 10, when you see that Daniel is praying, and Gabriel's trying to get to him, and he's delayed 21 days. And why? Because a spirit creature, called the Prince of Persia, is holding him back. So he finally breaks free, and gets the message to Daniel and says, I'm going back, and I'm going to go throw down again, and now it's going to be the Prince of Greece. And Michael is the only one that's helping me out on this. So what is that? So these divine creatures that God created, we call them angels, even the ones under Satan have principalities and rulership, and they're over certain territories and over certain nations. What is the angel, the good angel that's over Israel? Does anyone know? It's Michael. Michael is the prince over Israel. That's his nation that he's assigned to. Does the United States have an angel assigned to them? Yeah, we don't know who it is, but we do. And all the nations do. But the opposite is true. Satan has his guys over nations as well to corrupt them. And so you have this ongoing battle going back and forth with all of that. So, I'm glad you brought it up because it's something everyone needs to be aware of. This is what we call the cosmic order. And one of the things that comes out of that Michael Heisner will bring out is cosmic territory. That you need to be aware that these creatures that God created, on the bad side, they have certain territories they're over. And God has his as well. So there's this battle. Now, I've talked to people that have been in Satanism. And, they've been in occultism and different things of that nature. And here's what they indicate. They say it's true. What you're saying, or what even Michael Heiser's saying is true. We know that. We saw it. And in fact, that when a lot of times people have been involved in the occult, the veil between the physical realm and the spiritual realm is kind of thin. And here's what they say. They say that when they enter into different cities, they can see these spirit creatures over the territories. At least that's what they say coming from Satanism. And yeah, that sometimes happens. They can see things. I'm glad I don't see them because I think I would freak out. I think it would, if I started seeing all that. But when someone's been involved in Satanism and that deep in the occult, they are highly sensitive to that, and they say they see those things. I'm glad I don't. But anyway, good point. That's the divine counsel. And look, here's the end result. Eventually, God is exalting us in Christ above the angels. Did you know that? You're going to be above the angels. We're made a little lower than the angels, but one day we're going to be exalted above the angels, and we will be part of the divine council. Now, what do you mean? Well, the divine council, you can see it in Revelation 4 and 5 with the 24 elders. The 24 elders are around the throne. That's the divine council. But who are the 24 elders? The 24 elders is the church. It's us. And so at one point, when we're after the rapture and we're in heaven and everything, the divine council will include humans. Now, again, God doesn't need us. There's no, he doesn't need anybody. He doesn't need angels. But what he's doing is he's inviting us to be part of his family, to rule and reign. That's one of the purposes, is to rule and reign with him. He invites us to do that. Yeah, Mo, go ahead.
We're also going to judge them too. Right?
They're what now?
We're going to judge the angels.
Yeah, and Paul said that we're going to judge the angels as well. So we get that divine council status. So I'm glad you picked it up. I'm glad you're reading Heiser. I'm sad that he died. I wish Michael was still with us. But you guys, if you watch his videos, you will learn a lot about the supernatural. His book on angels and demons and the supernatural, phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal, man. I love it. Okay. Get this back to you, my friend. Good point. And Jeremiah had a question, I think, up here.
So my question isn't really based on, the theology part. Mine is more like a personal.
That's fine.
So just a little context. This has probably been the worst year of my life.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, started off bad, got worse, and then ended up horribly. And my thing is, a little bit more context is, I was actually in the military, got broken up with, crashed my car. But before that, right, everything was, I thought it was good,
Yeah.
And I've noticed recently I've had some change.
Okay.
And I'm a little scared. I don't really know exactly where things are going to go because, like I just stated before, life was good, and I'm really scared that it's going to go back down again.
Okay.
So when I got back to Bakersfield, I got back March 22nd. Immediately went straight down. Like, back, I relapsed, started doing drugs again. Drinking has been bad. Anybody that knows me in here, I'm pretty sure I've spilled my, testimony, and they were like, what? And I've noticed this change recently that I don't necessarily struggle with the same thing that I was struggling with just 2 months ago when I'm sober. But I struggle, how did I explain that? That whenever I'm sober, it doesn't bother me. But I got broken up with, right, and I was struggling really bad. That kind of sent me in a downward spiral. It sparked up everything that I just said, right? And I would drink, and then that's what made, more fuel to the fire, right? And it all originally started whenever I was sober. But now that I've been sober, I don't really, I don't crash out anymore. I don't think about it. I don't, but the second that I have, that urge, I had a long day at work, I work construction, I'll drink a beer. Everything just becomes flooded, and now, I one step forward, 11 steps back. But I've eliminated the alcohol, And now I feel like like imagine you're driving, like you know the car's gonna blow up in like 5 minutes. You know, that's how I'm feeling right now. But I also know that I can make it not blow up. But you know what I'm saying? Like I'm really stuck and I'm really scared because everything has been going great. I got a raise, I got a new vehicle. You know, I've been able to read the Bible a little bit more than I used to. You know, I have this sense of peace. I feel like God is with me, but I'm really scared that, because I've had this feeling before, I'm really scared that, you know, I'm going to relapse again, or that I'm going to, you know, and I just, as somebody who is, you know, invested in God and, you know, has had, you know, I don't want to call you old, but, you know, life experience. You know what I'm saying?
I am old. I am old. Great.
It's crazy because I saw, you know, I saw it from Yuli. He posted it on his story, and I was like, forget my notes, but I've been like really like I don't really talk that much to people about it, and I figured who else to talk to. Because I've been to a couple of your services, and I was like what would you? I know that I'm probably not explaining it that well, but what would you say to somebody, to me, you know, or anybody else that is going through that?
Yeah, sure. I think what the thing is you have to go back to your root issues, because that's where the rot is. So if you're going back to drinking or anything that sets you back in there, and it's like, okay, I can relapse, and then all that comes back, it's telling you that it's still there in your soul. It's still there in your core. So yeah, when things go great and you know you're getting your raise and this is going well, you will tend to bury that because things are going well. But the alcohol, believe it or not, or when you're relapsing, is revealing that it's still there as a root. And so it hasn't left. Because if you feel like, hey man, if I took another drink, it could come back, or I can relapse, or whatever, that tells me you're not past it. That what ends up happening to a lot of us, these things happen to us. We lose things. We lose careers. We lose relationships. We lose reputation, whatever it might be. And that becomes a wound. And the wound is there. But we can pretend that, well, it's not there, I'll cover it up, sweep it under the carpet, and I'll just move on and be positive. The problem is you can be positive, but it's still a wound, and the wound has to get healed. So going back, what I would say is, we have some wounds inside of you that probably need to be healed, and you know, obviously we can't deal with it all tonight, but I would say it's still there. And if it's not dealt with, it eventually, the root grows, and it sprouts, and branches start coming out, and fruit starts coming out. And you're like, I don't understand why I'm doing this odd behavior. I don't understand why I do this. I don't understand why I'm doing that. Oh, it's because you have a root inside. So here's the mistake people will do. They'll just start cutting branches off and fruit. So the branch would be drinking. I'm not drinking, Brad. Okay, but here's the thing. The drinking is not the root. It's the fruit of the root. So you can stop drinking, but unless the root's gone, I'll give you another example. You'll trade it off for something else weird. So instead of drinking, people will gravitate to eating, or they'll gravitate to this, or they'll gravitate to that. But something to soothe the wound, the pain inside. Look, man, we all experience pain. And I have in my life. And if we don't process that pain with truth, it will stay there and debilitate us. So you're a young guy, but if you live with that root, it'll make you into something later that you do not want to be. So it's to your advantage to deal with that pain. Because why? If you don't, you're sabotaging your future self. You're not going to be able to be the potential that God wants you to be, because you will sabotage your own growth unless you deal with it. Now, the pain could be the pain of loss or whatever, or it could be anything. Look, you know, I grew up with the pain of not having my parents together. They divorced, and I had to live with my dad, and that was painful. And the pain that it caused me, and I'll just give you an example for me. was that I must not be lovable enough, I must not be valuable enough for my parents to stay together, and so there's something lacking inside of me, and that caused me pain. Well, the way I covered up that pain is performance. So instead of getting destructive and like hitting drugs, alcohol, I went into performance mode. And I'm like, well, here's the thing. I'll get straight A's, and I'll do great in athletics, and I'll prove to them that I'm valuable. But that became destructive too, because that really wasn't the problem. And I was masking it. I was fronting with performance. And really what was happening is I was hurt inside. But what was the truth? The truth is I didn't have anything to do with my parents' divorce. That was on them. But I made it about me. I personalized it, said there must be something not valuable about me for why my parents would divorce. And I'm 11 years old. That's what happens when you're 11. You just think it's your fault. And it caused me a pain. And the pain was this that I carried around. It's a false pain, but it was a real pain. I'm not valuable enough. I'm worthless. I don't know how to. I don't know what to do to get someone's love. I guess I'll just perform for them. And if I can perform enough, then maybe I can win someone's attention and love and get value from that. But that's fake. Because the real value that God taught me was, no, you don't understand, Brandon. You're valuable if you were a quadriplegic in a bed and couldn't do anything. I value you, Brandon, because you're made in my image and I died for you. Now, that took me 10 years to figure that one out, okay? So you don't have to wait 10 years. But when I saw my real value from God, it freed me. Not instantaneously. It took me 10 years to figure that out. That's my hurt. But I'm telling you, what happens is people hurt you. Everyone's going to hurt you. You're just going to get used to it. It's how you interpret the hurt. And if you personalize it and you say, this is about me, there's something wrong with me, I'm defective, I'm messed up. I've had women tell me that since they were a teenager, since they were your age, they feel messed up. They feel like, I'm damaged goods. You don't know what happened to me, Brandon. This happened to me, and I'm damaged good. I'm no good for anybody. And they start feeling worthless, and that's the pain they start carrying around. So you can choose two things, Jeremiah, when you feel worthless and full of pain. I'll take the destructive route, or I'll take the performance route. I'll prove to you that I am good and valuable, or I will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're right. I'm no good. I am worthless, and so I will destroy myself. And people do that with drugs, alcohol, sex. They just go crazy. They go off the wire. And so to you, Jeremiah, or anyone here, if you're dealing with pain, you got to resolve that pain, and you go back with the truth. And it's always God's truth. God tells you who you are. And so, Jeremiah, I don't know all the pain. Maybe, eventually when you and I can talk on a personal level. But whatever you interpreted your losses as, I guarantee you there's probably a lie in there. And so what I had to do is figure out the lie. Because the lie was controlling my life. And the lie was, you're no good. You're worthless. If you were any good and lovable, your parents would have stayed together. That's a lie. Now, whether I put that in my own head or Satan put that in my head, that's what I believed for a long time, until I was like in my 20s. And dude, when you think you're not valuable and you think you're worthless, what it will drive you to do is insanity. You will get OCD. You will get all kinds of weird mental issues. No one had to tell me to practice. No one had to tell me to study. Because you know what? I was proving to them I'm valuable with my grades in athletics. But that was all it was about. And look, I wouldn't have ended up here as a pastor. I guarantee you, I would have went to earn $1 million. I would have went on the Wall Street. I would have been a stockbroker. And that's what I would just live for money. Because you know why? I wanted to prove to my parents I was valuable. So that's the career path I would have taken. But then when God got a hold of me, he says, no, we're not doing that. And we're going to drop this performance thing. And the minute I dropped that, I got onto his truth of, no, you're made in my image. I love you. You're valuable. I got something better for you. And it took me onto a different career of doing this, which I would never think of doing. So Jeremiah, even like this, think about this. If you or anyone in this room doesn't solve the lie problem or the pain inside of them, it will actually determine your career. It will determine who you marry, believe it or not. People will marry the wrong person because they got so much pain inside. I'll give you an example. There's a lot of ladies in this room, and I don't know their background, I don't know, but I know in counseling, I deal with ladies in their 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s or whatever, and here's what they tell me. They married to escape their home, to get away from mom and dad, because mom and dad were just horrible parents. And look, that's like 80% of people. They grew up with horrible parents, and they're like, I gotta get out of here. And you know what they think their escape is? I gotta find somebody, and I'll marry them, and that person will be the escape for me. And you know what happens? They end up marrying the wrong person. And then they're in a marriage for like the next 5 years, and like, I really don't like this guy. And he's terrible, but I know why I did it. I did it because it was a way of getting out of the house. And it's a disaster. And then they have kids with them. And I'm like, oh no, this guy's Tarzan. I don't like this guy. But what did they do? They were doing it because of pain. The pain actually motivated them to do something wrong out of God's will. Yeah, but
So you're talking about, identifying the pain and doing all that. I'm asking the question because I'm not too sure if I know the answer.
Okay.
I think that I do, but what would be? Is it just God's truth? Is that like opening your eyes and really putting aside your emotions and the way that you feel about it, and having a deep dive talk with God and allowing yourself to receive? Yeah.
Well, you're on to something. The first thing you have to do is identify whatever lie you believe about yourself. So here's how you do it. You go back to where the pain and the trauma is. Okay? Wherever this started. You lost your job, you lost a relationship. Maybe it's there, I don't know. Maybe it's earlier on in life. You identify where the trauma and the pain came from. Then you look at that and you say, is that pain and trauma, did that cause me to believe any lies about me, about God, about people, and about reality? Okay? Because some people think like this. Why would God let this happen to me? Holy smokes. Everyone said that, right? That's part of the thing. Okay, so what Satan wants to do is, yeah, that's right, Jeremiah. Why would God let? He must not love you. He must not really care for you. He must not really have your best intentions. And if you start thinking that way, you're going to go away from God instantaneously. And it's a lie. And everyone said, why would God let this happen? Well, the number one answer is free will. That's the truth. He doesn't get in the way of human beings' free will because he values relationship, just like you would value relationship. So if you're dating somebody, you want them to love you back, free will, right? But if you stuck a gun to their head and say, love me, okay, yeah, love you, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you, you're right, cool. What relationship is that, right? You're like, that's ridiculous. Well, that's the same thing with free will, right? God's not going to put a gun to your head and say, love me. He's going to say, you have a contrary choice of whether you want to love me back or not. And you have the option not to love me back. But the liability in free will is people will do bad things to you. That's the liability. And he will not violate that. Now, here's the thing. Someone usually causes the pain. Someone causes the pain. And here's what ends up happening, Jeremiah, to all of us. We say, where in the world is the justice in this? I had an injustice thing happen to me, whether it was from my mom or my dad or the coach or the teacher or my girlfriend or my boyfriend, and that's not right. That's injustice. And here's what can happen. I want justice. I want justice. And there's where the pain is. Okay, you want justice. Okay. The problem is you're not going to see it in this life. And you're going to get mad at God. Where's the justice? I want them to pay for what they did to me. And the issue about this is forgiveness. That's the hard part. Is can you forgive the person who did the injustice? Now, they're not going to get away with it. The key is you're going to have to give that injustice over to God, and God will one day deal with it, whether it's in this life or the next. But he's going to say, you're going to trust me, Jeremiah, on the justice on this. I'll pay them back, but you're going to trust me on this one. So I need you to forgive them. Now, what does forgiveness mean? It means I'm going to give the debt they owe me for what they did to me over to God and say he can handle it. That's what forgiveness is. It's releasing the debt to him and knowing that one day he will bring justice to the situation. And at the same time, knowing, as Joseph said, they meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. And you open yourself up to the possibility that God, can you bring good out of this? And he says, I can. I can bring good out of this if you'll let me work in you. But if you harbor bitterness and anger and unforgiveness, good will not come out of it. You will get worse. Because unforgiveness is like drinking poison. It's like you're just going to poison yourself. And you get worse. You get bitter and angry, and it changes you. But if you can give it over to God, and God's going to acknowledge they did wrong. Look, I've talked to people who have been raped and molested and all kind of beat by their parents to death almost. And the thing that frees them from that is they have to forgive and move on. Doesn't mean you have to be friends. Doesn't mean you even have the relationship with them anymore. It just means you need to release the debt. And that frees you. And it frees you so that you can be who God wants you to be. So, when you look at your trauma and pain, ask yourself, who caused this? Was it your parents? Was it a girlfriend? Who caused it? If you can name who that is, that's the person you need to forgive. So you can move on and grieve. And here's the thing, you need to grieve. We all need to grieve. Because here's the thing, when someone does something wrong to us, we lose something. We're losing. What do you mean? Well, I lost a relationship. I lost my family. My parents divorced. I lost my family. That's it, 11 o'clock. 11 years old. You ain't getting it back. It's gone. It's gone. And so when someone does trauma, you realize you're going to lose something. You have to grieve that. But here's the good news about the grieving. You grieve the loss of it, but knowing in the future you get everything back. What do you mean? In this life? No, not in this life. What Jesus promises you is this. The disciples said, we have left everything to follow you, man. Homes, family, jobs, everything. We've given it all to follow you. And Peter, thank God he said this, because I'm kind of curious about it. He goes, what's in it for us? Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm glad he said it, because that's what I was thinking too. We've given up everything for you. And he says, I'm going to tell you this. If you give a cup of cold water to one of my servants, you will get everything you have lost 100-fold back in the kingdom. I'll give everything back to you that you lost. Everything. 100-fold. 100. You lost your family, I'll give you a new family. You lost money, I'll give you, don't worry about the riches. You're going to be walking on streets of gold. Don't worry about it. Now, here's an interesting thing. I've been studying near-death experiences for a while now. It's piqued my interest. And I'm looking at thousands and thousands and thousands of people reporting what their experience in heaven was. Guess what? Just what Jesus said, they get everything back. Everything. I'll give you an example. Some of these people, thousands of them, they lost relationships because people died. Well, guess who gets to meet them in heaven? They love their brother, their sister, and they're doing great, and they get to have that reunion. And even their pets from when they were a kid. This one guy, he was bullied in school, he had no friends, and he would come home, and this dog just loved him to death. And that was his only friend in junior high, was this dog. Everyone hated him, and this dog just loved him, and this dog died. And it was like a big tragedy for him. Well, this guy is an airline pilot now, and he has a near-death experience, and he dies. And he goes, and the first thing that Jesus brings him is that dog. And he had this reunion with this dog. And he's crying and stuff, and you think, well, it's just a dog. No, you don't understand. That thing was more than a dog. That was his buddy. Because no one liked him, and he was being bullied. And the first thing Jesus brought with him when he got to heaven is, there's your dog. That's amazing. Did you get everything back? Everything you lose, you get back. And so when these people do wrong to you, yeah, you're going to lose it, but Jesus is saying, I'm going to give it back to you, Jeremiah. Just trust me. And it'll all be restored. I will redeem what the locusts have eaten, he says. But see, you're not going to get it right now. You got to wait. This one old guy, I'll give you another, this is funny. This one old boy, he has a near-death experience. And he's in there, and this angel is showing him around. And, of course, he meets his loved ones and his family members. But this guy was always pudgy. He always carried a lot of weight with him because he was overeating all the time. So anyway, his favorite thing was vanilla ice cream. Okay? So guess what the angel gives him? Gives him vanilla ice cream. And it doesn't melt. This ice cream doesn't melt in heaven. And he starts eating it, and he says, you know the good news about this? The angel told him, he goes, you won't gain any weight from eating anything you eat here. And so the guy was eating the ice cream like there was no tomorrow. But that was his near-death experience. One of the things. But just the fact that, yeah, you know, we have problems with our bodies, we have health issues and everything, you know, we've got all these stuff going on. The older you get, the worse. But we get everything restored back. We get everything restored. Well, that gives me the ability to grieve. So then when I lose something in this life, I'm like, all right, fine. I'll get it back. I didn't lose anything. Well, that gives me the ability to be free. Well, holy smokes, that brings healing to me. So I lost my family. I'm not getting it back. I lost half my childhood. It wasn't normal. But he's already promised, don't worry, Brandon, 100 times over, you're going to get your childhood back. You're going to get to play like you should have played. Because I had to grow up too fast. And many of you probably did too. You know, you had to grow up too fast. And all of a sudden you're like this 12-year-old adult because you're taking care of yourself. And there's no one else watching out for you to take your lunch to school if you miss it. So you had to grow up. But one day, I'm going to get my childhood back. I'm going to be free of responsibility. I'm going to be able to run with, you know, in the fields with Jesus and do things that I should have done as a kid. I'll get my childhood back. And so will you, if you missed it. And loved ones that you lost too early, they're there. They're waiting for you. This one guy encountered his brother, and he's seen his brother in 30 years. And he saw his brother, and they were having a big reunion, and the brother that was in heaven that had died 30 years ago, he says, it's been 30 years? He says, it just feels like yesterday. I just got here. And they're like, yeah, because that's how time is in heaven. It's in time without end. And it just feels like you've been there yesterday, and you've been there 30 years, and you didn't even realize it. But, you know, the grand reunion with our family members that we've lost, their loved ones, they're there. They're waiting for you, if they knew Jesus, obviously. So anyway, long story short, I know I took it too long, but that's how we can forgive. It's because you didn't lose anything. That makes sense. Okay.
Thank you, that makes sense.
Okay.
I was listening.
Hey, we talked about, the first time we had Q&A, we talked about equally yoked relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good. I have a following one, because I do see this a lot in this culture. And is this, how can we discern if we're truly ready for a relationship, especially when we still have unresolved insecurities or struggles? As believers, how important, it's like 3 questions. How important is it to be healed and whole before entering a partnership? And what are the red flags within ourselves that indicate we might not be ready yet?
Holy smokes. That's good. Yeah. Okay, here's the thing. We're a process. No one's going to be made whole before you get married, but we're a process. But here's the thing you want to know before you get married. Do I know what my issues are, and do I know what the person's issues are that I'm marrying? Because here's what you don't want. If you go in blind into a relationship and say, I'm going to get married to this person, and you don't know your baggage, and you don't know the other person's baggage, you're going to bring that baggage into the marriage, and here's what happens. It'll be a disaster, because here's what happens. You want to marry someone that will complement you, but not complete you. That's a mistake. Now, here's what happens. People have deficits because they have unresolved issues. And those unresolved issues actually match other people's unresolved issues. What do you mean? Let me explain. If you're starting to develop codependency, which means that I need to be needed, Brandon, my parents can make me feel valuable, but when I do things for others, it makes me feel needed. And when people depend on me for things, it makes me feel needed. Okay, great. That could be development of codependency, a need to be needed. Okay? It's almost a guarantee that a codependent person will marry an addict. Why is that? Because the addict is a project. The addict needs somebody to bail them out. There's always an enabler behind an addict. And, if it's not their parents, it'll be their spouse. And so what I find in counseling, which goes hand in hand, is behind codependency is the spouse that's an addict. And so they get married and they think, this is wonderful. This is great. We both complete each other. And it's like, no. You both have issues that are melting together that fit very well, but it's not a complement. It's a problem. Because you do not want to marry an addict, and you do not want to be a codependent, okay? And those kinds of things. So again, it's not that we're perfect. It's that I know my background. I know my tendencies. I know what I can be. Hey, I know I can be angry. I know I can be short. I know I can be OCD about certain things. I know I can be a control freak. Okay. Well, if you know that, be careful, because that might lend you to marry somebody that might match that problem. You know who controllers like? Controllers like irresponsible people. They like controlling the entire environment, but they don't want their spouse to control anything, so they marry a child, so to speak. So you have then a parent-child relationship, or something like that. Or a master-slave relationship in the marriage. Or how about this one? The biggie. You ready for the biggie? Men who have the Adam syndrome like to marry women who have the Eve syndrome. What is the Adam syndrome? It is the guy does not want to be the leader in the home. He likes the term leader, but he doesn't like the responsibility that it brings. Okay? What's the Eve syndrome? The Eve syndrome is, I want his position, I want to be in control, and so I will look for a guy who doesn't want to be in control. And then she dominates the relationship. Dude, that is like the number one problem in all my counseling. Is the guy's not in charge and the woman is. It's like hands down the number one problem. Now here's the thing. Guys, I'll speak to you first. You have to be the leader. You have to step up. You have to lead your wife. You have to lead your family. Okay? But if you don't, and you're like, I'm not really for the leadership thing, do you know what will happen? You'll marry a girl who will control you for the rest of your life. That's a problem. And your house will go upside down, and your kids will repeat it. So my thing is to you, a good question about this, know your proclivities, start working on them, and make sure your proclivity is not matching the other person's proclivities. But here's the thing. If you're dating somebody, you better get it all on the table. I can just tell you right now, because if you come and say, Brandon, I'm gonna get married to this guy, and he's wonderful, and I'm gonna say, here's the deal, we're gonna go through premarital counseling. And through premarital counseling, we're gonna have to vomit up all of our stuff. What do you mean? I want it all to come out. you went through, with what's your family like, because the in-laws are going to be a problem. What are the 3 things you're going to argue about in marriage? It's 3 things: money, sex, and in-laws. That's what you're going to argue about. That's your top 3: money, sex, in-laws. And everything swirls around those 3 concepts. So why do I have the premarital couples vomit out their stuff? Because we're going to talk about sex, we're going to talk about your in-laws, and we're going to talk about money and how we're going to deal with this. Because if there's any problems and any hiccups in those 3 areas, they're going to come out in your marriage. Number 1 is sex. You think, that's a problem? I thought we had freedom to have sex. Here's a weird thing. People get married and then they don't want to have sex. Go figure, duh, what's going on? You have green light. I don't feel like doing it. Wait a second. The whole point of teenage, you guys were all charged up. We were all charged up to have sex, and we're trying to hold off, and we're we can't even control ourselves very much. And so, and then now we're putting the ring on their finger, and it's like, yeah, go for it now. Tater chip, let her rip. Go for it. You can do it now. I don't feel like it. I'm tired. I have a headache. What? And it's like, nothing happens. And so they come back into counseling and they're like, hey, we haven't had sex in 9 months. What? What do you mean you haven't had sex in 9 months? You're married, right? You like each other? I don't know. It's just like, oh my gosh. You know what happens? Is the devil will play tricks on you in your marriage. And that's why in premarital you got to talk about sex. And you got to talk about what's going on. Because here's what will happen. And I think I mentioned this last time. If you're not bonded mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, here's what happens. You get married, the honeymoon lasts probably maybe 2 years. At tops. Maybe a year. But 2 years if you're good. Okay? The romance will last. And like, oh man, I'm so attracted to them. After 2 years, the romance dies. Okay? And then reality hits. I'm married to this person. And here's what ends up happening. How does the romance keep happening? Because you can connect mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. If you can connect on those, it keeps the fire going. It keeps the person attractive to you. Okay? But if you just get married on physicality, you're not going to be attracted after 2 years. And that's how it works. So God is pretty smart. If you guys ever read the Song of Solomon, and you're all old enough to read it, by the way, because they didn't let Hebrew kids read this under 13. Read the Song of Solomon. It tells you how to hold yourself off until marriage, and then how to have proper sex in marriage, and how to keep the romance alive. And it goes over those things. That's where I'm pulling this information from. So when you're dating, back to him, I better be able to connect mentally, emotionally, and spiritually to the person. Are they on the same wavelength? And if not, ditch them. Get rid of them. Don't do it. Because I know they're attractive to you, or handsome to you, or something like that. But that's not enough. It's not enough. It won't keep you in the game. And so, anyway, those are kind of my tips. But this is the stuff that's coming out of counseling. So, anyway, good question. All right, where are we at?
Okay, what does modesty look like for men and women, both inwardly and outwardly? And what scriptures can we look back on?
So, here's modesty in a nutshell. Whether you're a guy or whether you're a girl, modesty is to get you to draw the attention of someone else to your face. Okay? Whether you're a guy or a girl, you want people's attention here, not anywhere else. When you're immodest, the clothing you will wear will draw attention to your body. That's when you're knowing you're being immodest. Now, I'll give you some funny things about this. So, like when I go to Israel, the Orthodox are the women that are Orthodox. They have to cover up their entire body. Okay, but here's the loophole: how they get out of this. Their whole body is covered, but they'll be wearing the skin tight. What are they called? The lycra. They'll be wearing the lycra outfits. Okay? But what's the problem with that? Well, they're saying, well, I'm covered. I'm covered from neck to ankle and all the way to my wrist. You can't see anything, but it's all lycra. But you're missing the point. We can still see the shape of your body. And that's a problem. Because it's like you're nude walking around in a black lycra. And so there's a fight going on in Israel among the Orthodox about their women dressing in lycra, but the women are saying, well, we're covered, we're modest. And he's like, no, you're not. You're showing your bodies off. And so anyway, there's a whole fight going on there. But the issue then is, back to modesty. Even in that day, what you were supposed to do is dress in a way that garnered attention to your face. That's what you teach your kids to do. If the Bible's not against looking good. It wants you to be well groomed. It wants you, and here's part of modesty is dressing appropriately for the occasion. Okay? Now, what ends up happening is some people are immodest because they don't know how to dress appropriately to the occasion. They either overdress for the occasion or they underdress for the occasion. And that's also immodest as well. For instance, if you go to a wedding in flip-flops and shorts, you're an idiot. It's like, what are you doing? You're going to a wedding, you need to dress up for the wedding, right? But if you go to a funeral and you're wearing flip-flops and shorts, you're an idiot too, because that's not appropriate. So modesty is not even just about sexuality, it's about dressing appropriately. Now here's the thing, what you're thinking about. When you put on your clothes, what are you thinking? You should be thinking about others. What do you mean? Not attracting them, but I am dressing so that people are not distracted by me. That they don't even think about what I'm wearing. It's like I blend in. I'm gray. And all they're paying attention to is my face. So when you're dressing, you think, will this outfit stumble somebody? That's how you have to think. And that's how Paul says. You have to dress appropriately so you don't cause anyone to stumble. Now, like in his day, having, for women, having their hair unveiled, that was a big thing. Well, it's not that way today. But you have to think in terms, okay, what am I doing with my clothing? Am I doing this because, well, I can dress any way I want, and if they lust after me, that's their own problem. You can't think like that. That's totally immature. You have to think, am I going to cause somebody to stumble over this? And that's the more mature method you have to take. Now, what does that look like? I don't know yet. That starts getting into the details that's not even appropriate. Do I wear a skirt that's an inch above my knee, or it's 2 inches? If you're getting into that, then you're not understanding the concept. Whatever would cause someone to stumble, don't wear it. It could be stupid stuff or whatever. But it doesn't have to necessarily be seductive. So anyway, modesty is just simply dressing appropriate for the occasion to not make people stumble. So, good question. Right over here. What else do we got?
Hi.
Hi.
Okay, so I had a tia who was a witch in Mexico, and I have 3 tias who are able to sense people's energy. So my question is, how is that all of them have the same ability to sense people's energy? Because they say that they didn't do anything intentionally to gain those abilities. And do you think it can be related to my tia being a witch?
Yeah, are they? They're in Brujeria, right?
The tia in Mexico, yes.
Yeah,
but the other 3 don't. They don't do that.
But they have those abilities.
Yeah.
And they were not witches.
No. No, they
But
don't.
they're related to this one gal?
Yeah, we're all
related. Okay. But they have this extrasensory. Okay, that's weird. Okay, but it makes
one
sense.
of them, recently we just talked to her. One of them, she says every time she walks into the room, she's Catholic, by the way.
Yeah.
She walks into the room, she walks into church, and she could just feel everyone's energy. And she even mentioned that to me and my sister and my mom, that she can't feel anything from us, but from other people she can, and that it just drains her, and that she also. She doesn't know how to get rid of it, but that she also prays to God to help her and stuff like that. So it's just weird how all three of them are able to sense people's energy the moment they walk into a room.
And they're all related. They're all related.
Yeah, we're all, yeah. The first two are first cousins, and one of them, their mom and daughter.
Okay. So the entrance for this is that it's the witch. Whoever the witch is, okay, that's the entry point. And so they're going to use that. Are they believers?
One of them, I think they are. I think they are believers.
Okay.
Because we talk about God and everything, and it seems like they are believers.
Okay. So what's going on here is the demons that are using the witch, their relationship with the witch has given the demons permission to attach themselves to them. I'm not saying they're possessed, but attach themselves. Because when they tell you they have extrasensory perceptions like that, that is not from God. That is a demon giving them that kind of ability. And so that tells me they have demons attached to them, not possessing them. And so the entry point is the permission of the relationship. So what do? They have to break off the relationship with the witch, because that's what's given the entry point. Now, what ends up happening is when, I know this sounds bizarre, but demons and fallen angels work like lawyers, man. They are legalistic, and the way they work is by permission. And it's not like your relative said, yeah, okay, do this to me. I give you. They don't have to do that. It's the act of being in relationship with the brujeria, and it could be an idol, it could be an image, it could be them doing something. So there's all kinds of ways that they can get permission. My guess is the witch. It's the relationship with the witch, and it's affecting them to where they're getting extrasensory perception. That's paranormal activity. Some people get like psychic ability, or they can tell something's going to happen before it happens, or they can actually have telepathy, and stuff like that. And that seems to be that they can sense people's energies, right? Yeah. Energy is the big thing in the demonic realm. And so it tells me that somehow they have permission to do this to them. My thing is they're going to have to get away from the witch.
Well, because she passed away already.
Okay.
So that's where.
Okay, so the witch is dead.
Yeah.
Ding dong.
Yeah.
Right? You guys watch The Wizard of Oz, right? Ding dong, the witch is dead. Okay, but here's the thing. They still have permission to mess with them, even though she's dead. So what they have to do is renounce their relationship with her to God. And as simple as this. I renounce that relationship that opened me up to demonic influence in the name of Jesus Christ and under His blood. In Jesus' name, amen. And they have to do it out loud, because the demons have to hear it. And that's how they formally break the covenant. So if you can get them to do that, tell them to do that. But here's the thing. They may not go away instantaneously. And they say, well, it's still here. Keep doing it. And they're going to say, how long? Keep doing it until it stops. Just keep renouncing it and renounce it, because you don't know how deep it went. And so that's what you can tell them to do if they'll do it. That's part and parcel. Yeah, go ahead. Where are we at? Okay, go ahead.
All right, so the question I will ask is, what exactly constitutes adultery? Now, I know you had a sermon on this. I had some conversations recently, and I guess I was just shocked at the split on what constitutes adultery. Because, you know, you have some people who say that, for instance, if I was married to a woman, and let's say she was making out and cuddling with another guy, that wouldn't be adultery because, you know, it's not penetration, basically.
Yeah.
So to them, it's only penetration.
Yeah.
And anything outside of that, and go down to the first base, as long as you can go on first base sexually, doesn't count as adultery and it's not grounds for divorce. So, yeah, basically that's my question, because it was like a 40-60 split, I feel, in percentages. You got 60% saying that all forms of sexual morality outside of the marriage, even down to making out, is adultery. And then you got the other 40% like, no, you have to wait until, you know, they basically penetrate them, right? Well, but then, my bad.
You're good, man. I'm tracking, man.
Last thing I want to say, too, I also want you to touch on this because, you know, I'm not going to lie. When it comes to that type of stuff, I'm very, like, cutthroat. I'm like, no, this is this, right? So
God bless you.
even when it comes to, let's say, flirting, sexting, sending illicit photos,
okay,
right? Like, I want to know where that is in this entire thing.
Good. You need to know the line. Absolutely. And it's a real easy answer. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's the term porneia. That's where we get the word pornography from. It's the Greek word. Okay, here's where it goes. And see if this encapsulates what you're saying. Porneia is anything sexually physical that I do, which would include kissing, which would include oral sex, would include grinding. It would include being with someone in the bed and saying, well, we're just hugging in the bed. No. And so, yes, if someone was making out, that's a physical act, it would fall under the definition of porneia. Now, here's the thing. The person doesn't have to divorce if they don't want to. Okay? And so that's their choice. But the term porneia encompasses anything physical outside of sex. So kissing someone else that's not your wife, that's the term porneia. Now, guys have been kicked out of ministry for that. There's been guys that, pastors that have been making out with gals that are not their wife, and they have lost their ministry. They're out. Because, yes, we interpret that as adultery. But it doesn't include non-physical. So, if someone's saying, I'm going to divorce my husband because he's looking at pornography, you don't have the grounds for it. You don't have the ground for it because it's not physical. And a lot of people want to turn it into the invisible. It's not, because the word doesn't allow anything non-physical. It's a physical word. Now, that encompasses a lot of physicality. It encompasses a lot of stuff, man. And sky's the limit on the physical realm. But the fact that, we can only get a divorce if there's penetration, no, because porneia also includes that as fornication, and anything physical fornicating is that as well. Could be interpreted as that. So yeah, that's the real thing you have to go by. Okay, go ahead, follow up.
So then, just so it's really, really clear, right? Because I did think that, like, for instance, let's say I had a porn problem and I was in a marriage, I did think, okay, if my wife wanted to divorce me, she could. So
she could separate from you, but not divorce you until you've got your addiction figured out.
So then with going into, like, if I had a wife, right, and she was, like I said, let's say flirting sexually with somebody, sending illicit photos. So, like, talking dirty to somebody else, basically, that's not in the marriage. Or let's say she sent them, I'm just being very, radar here.
Go for it.
But let's say she sent them, like, photos of herself nude and all these things. So in those cases, it wouldn't be grounds for divorce.
No.
Okay.
Because it's non-physical.
Okay.
Now, what would I say? I said, at this point, probably need to physically separate, and we're not going to divorce, but we're going to physically separate so someone gets their head screwed on straight. Yeah. Because that's pretty serious, right? Doing that. So So that's the thing. I can't go further than Jesus. Okay. But I will say, Paul allows separation. Now, I might have to we might have to get separated at that point in time. Now, how long is separation going to last? I don't know. It depends on if that guy's going to get help. And sometimes what I see in the separation is they're separated indefinitely because of that. And so some people have to live out their lives like that. And quite frankly, I've dealt with people that have had to live out their lives like that.
Yeah.
But again, I'm not going to go as far as what the word is. The word is a physical act. Okay, so anything physical, kissing, oral sex, grinding, whatever, now you're done at that point.
So then even when it says, like, if you look at a woman with lust, right, you commit adultery within your heart. But that's the pornea word.
Yeah,
so I guess I'm trying to understand.
No. Don't confuse the marriage thing with lust.
Okay.
Okay, don't conflate the two. Because then everyone would be divorced at that point, okay? Okay, just putting that out there. There's a profound difference. Because pornea, lust is in the mind. There's nothing physical happening, right? It breaks the law of thou shalt not commit adultery. But lusting doesn't bring the penalty of physically adultery. There's difference because of the penalty and the consequence. So, yeah. But lust is a non-physical act. Does it break the law? Yes. Is it less of a sin? Yes. The grave sin would be to physically commit adultery. Just like murder would be a worse sin than thinking, I hate that guy.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
There's degrees of sin.
Yeah.
And degrees of consequences. So what Jesus is saying is that there's a physical consequence for a physical sexual problem, but not lust. You couldn't put lust in there.
Okay, thank you.
It's the heart of it, but yeah. Where am I at? Yeah.
All right, Pastor. So one of the questions that I've been, or at least had in question for a while now, is the background of like Lilith. From what I heard is, her being the Adam's first wife, and then also like the queen of demons and all that. But what is like really like the origin, or like, because it recently came into a conversation with one of the ladies I know from the office, that even they use her to kind of not really be under, or how would I put it, not to obey like their husbands and all that. So basically kind of like, if she's not, if she doesn't be under authority of a man, what should I do that the same? So they kind of use her for that as well. So what's kind of like the origin of her? That's been really my question for a couple
years. I think if I remember on top of my head, the concept of Lilith came from Jewish Kabbalism, and that's Jewish mysticism, and saying that it's Adam's first wife. And again, there's no basis to say that. But what we understand in the demonic realm, the concept of Lilith is used for lesbianism. That's where it comes from. There's a spirit of lesbianism. And that's the Lilith spirit, so to speak. And so what the demons do is convince people to be lesbians through that spirit. Again, that's where it's made up, but there are things there, spiritual things there. So when someone takes on that motto, you're going to see a rebellious spirit in the woman, and you're going to see eventually a turn to lesbianism. That's where that comes from. And the same is true in homosexuality. The same is true in sexual perversion. They all have a demonic or fallen angel aspect that's pushing that sin from behind. So if you watch what happened in American history, we had the sexual revolution in the 60s. And then after that, you had the homosexual thing pop up. And then lesbianism popped up. And now, killing children. And that's not an accident the way that happened. Because you have sexual immorality, leads to perversion, sexual immorality, homosexuality, lesbianism, and then they end up sacrificing children to Moloch. It's that pattern. That's actually a demonic pattern. So the Lilith pattern is to turn women into lesbians. And Asmodean, or I can't pronounce the demon, the spirit, Asmodeus or whatever, is the spirit of homosexuality. And it pushes that aspect to it. So the fact that you're dealing with people that saying they like that, that's what's pushing them into that direction. And it's a spirit of rebellion. But that's where it came from. And it's nonsense as far as like biblical origins. That's just crazy, you know. And that's as worse as saying that Eve had sex with a snake. I mean, and I don't know if you've heard that, but that's out there too. And it's like, what? What are you talking about? Where'd you get that? Again, it's coming from the occult, right? But the Lilith spirit, that's where it centers from. It's demonic, completely demonic. I hope that answered it. Yeah. Okay. Where are we at?
Hi.
Hey.
So, hi. My question kind of stems from Jeremiah, I believe. Yes. Okay, yeah. So, basically how, you know, like we're all going through hard things. We've all been through hard things.
Sure.
And it's important to mourn correctly. And so I guess my question, and mourning, probably that season lasts differently from probably depending on what the situation is, obviously. But my question would kind of, is there ever a point that you get out of that mourning state? Because a lot of times, depending on the degree of how badly you've been hurt or whatever that happened, sometimes, like young adults, we struggle. Like we're going to, I mean, everyone has this struggle, but you're going to face the fact of distracting yourself with, I mean, like he was saying, where it's like alcohol, drugs, all that, or distracting yourself with performative, which happens in church too. You know, that level of just distracting yourself. And yes, you're in the church, but you're not processing things correctly. And so when you are processing things the right way and you're mourning the right way, you're surrounding yourself with the right people, you're surrounding yourself by meditating on the correct character of God instead of, you know, yourselves, things like that. Is there ever a state when you're out of that? That's my question. Because then I think once you're mourning something, you're just relearning how to live because you've changed, and it's just like there's only so much that you can do because you're a whole different person. I mean, not a whole different person, but like, you know what I mean. So then you're just kind of relearning how to process this next step, I guess. But like basically my question is like, are you ever out of that mourning state? Because I know, and then also how to I guess, is there ever a process of like mourning correctly? Like say you've lost a loved one, what's the process of mourning correctly? And like, are we ever out of that? Because ultimately when you lose someone, you feel like a lot of times when you lose someone, like say you lost your spouse, you feel like you're not yourself anymore, and you're gonna have to move on without them, and then you know what I mean. So
totally. You're making a good point. When you let's talk about someone that dies in your family that you love. That's never going to be replaced in this life. You're going to have a big gap in your soul because they're missing now. So don't ever believe any counsel says, "Well, just get over it." You never get over losing somebody when they die. Now we'll see them again. We have that joy. Now, how do we know we're grieving correctly? Well, there's cycles of grieving, and so the initial cycle when grief hits us is shock. Okay, and that's like, I can't believe this is happening to me. Is this really happening to me? And you go into surreal. A lot of people get stuck in shock. Like, this didn't happen. Then you move into anger. And like, you get mad at God, you get mad at life, you get mad at everything. And so people get stuck in anger. Then the next one is depression. And they get depressed. And they can get stuck in depression. And they can get stuck in depression the rest of their life. Then they get stuck after that one is in bargaining. Well, if I would have done this different, if I wouldn't have taken that ride and went in that car, and if I wouldn't have went on that date, so you start bargaining and questioning. Okay. You can get stuck in any one of those I just said. Shock, depression, anger, and bargaining. And I've seen people never get out of those. Now, here's the thing. If you grieve properly, you will work through all of those, and the end is, I can let it go now. Not saying the hole in your heart will ever be filled, but now I can move forward with the rest of my life. I'm not depressed. I'm not angered. I'm not bargaining anymore. I have grieved, and now I'm moving forward. So, you do get past the grief. You never get over the loss. you get over the grieving. But that's God's way. He gives us grief so we can process things. And what you're doing is you're processing with truth. Truth sets you free. And eventually you get to the point where, like, you're like a trapeze artist, where he swings from one trapeze to the next. You let go. And you grab the next one. And what happens is people don't want to let go. Because they think if they let go, they're never going to experience that loved one again. And that's why they don't let go. So they stay in anger, they stay in grief, and not grief, but a depression or whatever, because they think they're never going to get it back. But like I just said earlier to Jeremiah, you do get it back. You do get your relationships back. And when someone's ready to do it, it's they let go of the trapeze and they grab for the next one, and they move to the next season of life. Whether that takes 2 years, whether it takes 5 years, it's all different for different people. But you do get past the grief. You do. And you can recognize, yes, this happened to me, but you know what? I'm good now. I'm still missing that person, but I'm good. And they live the rest of their life healthy. That's how it's supposed to work. But yeah.
Yeah, I think when it comes to that, I think it's just a struggle when you haven't done that, and everyone's going to face that hardship eventually. Because once you put that into practice, when other things come about, then you can handle them faster. And if anything, you're gonna feel bad, but you almost grieve faster because you know how to process it correctly.
That's it. And you're hitting a good point. How long does it take to grieve? It depends on how willing you're to process it with truth. And yes, the quicker you are to get the truth to the situation, the quicker you get free, right? But you have to go through grief. You have to. That's part of it. You do not want to sit there and say, I'm not going to grieve. I'm not going to shed a tear. You do not want to be like that, because that means you're burying your emotions. God gave you your emotions to get them out. Get it out. And once the emotions get it out, you have healing. So do not bury emotions. You might have to cry for days. Get it out. That's okay. Get it out. Get it out. Because you lost something. And that's part of the grieving process. But when you say, I'm not grieving, I'm not going to shed a tear, I'm going to bury it and pretend it didn't happen, you're getting worse. It actually hurts you even worse than that. So, good question. Okay. How else are we doing? We got it all covered? Wow. Those are amazing.
Actually, I got one.
Go ahead, man. Marcus, go for it.
So, actually, I got two, but.
Go for it.
Alright, so I'll do the main one first.
Okay.
So, how would you find, like, what is God calling you for? Because
okay.
A lot of times I don't feel like it's in church, but I feel like He has a different purpose. How would you go around finding that or going about that?
Good. That's a good question. Love that. Okay, so that's the first question. Okay, here's the thing. Marcus, I want you to look at your history. Your whole growing up, where you're at, all the way to this point, because what you're going to see is God's hand in preparing you. Okay, so you have to look at the high points of what He's been preparing you for. Okay, second thing, you want to look at your pain. You want to look at your trauma, because it's not an accident. Certain things happen to you. It taught you something. Okay. The third thing, you want to look at your physical gifts. What did God give you? Fourth, you want to look at your spiritual gifts. What are the spiritual gifts God gave you? Now, when you put that all together, it's going to give you a direction. And it should, and now it's going to be fuzzy, but then I want you to step out in that direction, and once the minute you step out, it starts getting clearer and clearer and clearer. But it's not going to be you trying to struggle. It's all based on your past. He's been preparing you for it.
Your testimony and just your all-around gifts that He gave you in those testimonies.
Write down on a paper your physical gifts. Where you say, well, I'm good at organizing. I'm smart in this area. I like math, or I like reading, or I'm good here. I'm good at public speaking, or whatever. Write those things down. And what you'll see is there's a direction they're heading to. And then you have spiritual gifts. And you have to figure out your spiritual gifts as well. Because your spiritual gifts are definitely going to tell you where to go. But think about your history. What has he been preparing you for? What has he used in your life? What experiences have you had? All of that is meant to say, this is the career for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. You got to think of all of that a little bit. Now, what's your second question?
Okay. Second one is kind of what Mo said about alien and stuff, and about kind of like witchcraft and the same thing.
Okay.
So like for me, I don't know why, but I always wake up like with dreams of like aliens, like
Really?
all the time. Like it's sometimes it could be different type of war. Like yeah, just something in war with aliens or the world ending or somehow the beast of the water or something, you know. And it's just like it's weird because I never read Revelation, so
okay.
And a lot of times when I start hearing about Revelation, it just like it's what happened in the dream. And a lot of times, like God talks to me. Well, I don't know if it is Him or not. It's He gives me foresight, or something gives me foresight, and it's just like I don't know where that's coming from, and you know, like something I end up like getting deja vu or something in the future or in a couple of days.
Okay.
So how would you go around something like that?
Are you like watching like YouTube videos on this stuff, or what's peaking? It's not like you're studying, reading books on this stuff.
Probably the Bible, that's it, but
Okay.
that, no.
So it's just you're just having these random dreams. Well, and then you're having intuitions or something like that.
Yeah, well, I don't consider it intuition. I say more Holy Spirit. Like,
Okay.
you know, I guess. But how would you go around that? I guess. Or discern that.
My interpretation is if you're having reoccurring dreams, okay, these are reoccurring and they're always aliens or something. Something's going on. So are they terrifying you in the dream?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I would probably classify that as if it's repeating. Okay, it's one thing to have a bad dream. Okay, but if like no, Brandon, I've had like a dozen of the same thing. Okay, if you're saying that, you're being demonically harassed. That's what's happening. Because that's not an accident. You keep having the same dream over, and they're attacking you, and it's the same kind of motif.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a red flag. So then the next question I would say is, why are they going after you?
Honestly, I feel like it's going to be close to the Father every single day, and
Because you're getting close to Jesus and God,
yeah, and this is like,
and they're trying to intimidate you. Okay, that might be the very thing. Because when did you become a Christian?
like 2 years ago.
Okay. Were you involved in anything before that? Like occultic or anything like that?
No, I was in the Catholic church, but
Oh.
I didn't understand it.
Okay. All right, cool. All right, cool. Okay, so one of the things I will say is, and I've talked to other people, many people that have had demonic dreams, and if they're not involved in the occult, they're not doing anything, like worshiping an idol or anything weird, then they are trying to scare you of growing in your relationship with the Lord. And here's what you have to do. You just have to keep persevering and drawing near to Him. Because here's what they're trying to do. They're wanting to see if they can make you afraid and back you off. And you have to show them you are not going to back off on your relationship with God. That you're going to go forward and keep pushing it. And here's the thing. You need to pray before you go to sleep. And pray that God protects your mind and your dreams and protects you from demons. And sends your guardian angel to protect you. But here's what will happen. If they keep noticing that you keep persevering, you keep drawing closer, they're going to eventually give up on you. But they're trying to see how long they can wait you out. That's what they're doing. And they're going to say, look, let's see what this guy does. If we can convince him of moving off of God and going back to his old life, then we got him. So you have to prove to them. Now, how long you have to do it, I don't know. Long enough to where they leave you alone. But there's no doubt that's demonic dreams. When you see that paddle.
Yeah.
It's the same.
Basically.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, that's what's happening. But good question. Go ahead. Ulysses.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess mine's a follow-up question to finding your calling in Christ.
Okay.
I think something as new believers that we struggle with is finding your identity in Christ.
Yeah.
Two different things. And the biggest thing to me that's been pulling me in the season that I'm going in is finding my identity in Christ, truthfully.
Sure.
So how do you go about that?
Yeah, you're hitting a good point because, back to what he's asking about, what kind of career path do I take? You can't figure out your career path until you know who you are. And if you don't know who you are, you're going to struggle. Like, you're going to try this and try that, and it's not going to work. So, okay, how do you find your identity? Here's what you got to do. It's found in the new covenant. It's who you are in Christ, so it's always in Christ. It's not apart from Him. So it's in the new covenant. So what do I mean? That means your identity is going to be found in the New Testament. And that's where the new covenant is found. And here's what I want you to do. All of you want to find out who I am. You start reading the New Testament, start in the Gospels, and go through them. And any time Jesus says, this is who you are, you're the light of the world, you're the salt of the earth, you mark that down. And what you got to do is you got to figure out, okay, what does it mean to be light? What does it mean to be salt? And you move on from there. Get those under your belt, figure those out, and write those down. And you can keep moving on. And as you work your way through the New Testament, it's going to give you probably somewhere in the neighborhood of close to 100 different identities in the New Covenant about you, of who you are in Jesus. It's going to call you a king. It's going to call you a priest. It's going to call you, you're set free. You're a new creation. You've got to know what all of those things mean. When you figure that out, then you have to then believe it and apply it to yourself. Okay, I am light. I am salt. I am a king. I am a priest. What does that mean? Then you act it out. Now, here's the thing. Once you figure those things out, and by the way, I can email you guys. I've already put them together, okay? So I can save you a lot of time. So maybe I'll email Jeremy, and then he can email all of you guys about how to find your identity in Christ. It's all there. But here's the thing. You still need to do the homework because I can give you all the scriptures, but you've got to go back and study them and then appropriate them. Now, here's the thing. If you believe who you really are in Christ, holy smokes, you will be set on fire and you will be like a laser beam on exactly what you need to be doing with your life. It will. But here's the problem. You will struggle to believe it. You will struggle to believe because you have lies in you, and I have lies in me, and I have to get it out. And that's what struggled for like 10 years. I struggled with who I really was. But once I figured out who I was, I'm like, oh, that's the path. It just like light up. It lit up. I'm supposed to be a pastor. But until I figured out who I was, I didn't know what path I was going to be on. And so that's with you. That's the good news. God's not trying to hide it, but He wants you to do a little work. And He said, I'm not going to spoon feed you. I'm not going to serve it up to a silver platter. He goes, I put it in my book, and you guys need to figure it out and discover it. And once you discover it, you will find what you're supposed to be doing with your life. And once you get it, it all makes sense. Everything starts lining up. You're like, oh, I get that. That's why I went to school here. And that's why I had those friends. And that's why I had that experience. It all starts lining up. And you're like, it makes perfect sense. So I would start there. I'll email him, and then you guys can study it. Okay?
Appreciate it, Pastor.
You betcha. Go ahead.
Hello.
Hey.
Going to that, like finding your purpose in the Lord and stuff, I've had the blessing of figuring that out, doing pro-life stuff.
Good.
It's just, I struggle with it feeling like enough. Like, I do all this work, and I can tell other people what I do, and I'm like, hey, maybe I am doing a lot. But then I'm just like, it just never feels like I'm
Like you're doing enough?
Yeah.
How come? You don't know? Okay. So here's what you need to think about. You need to think about your standard. Because if you're coming up like, I never feel like I'm doing enough, that's the performance standard. That's what I had. And what happens is you set this bar for you, like a high jump, and like, okay, that's the high jump. I got to make that. And then you make it, And you're like, no, I got to set the bar higher. And then you set it higher. And you just keep setting it higher. And you're like, I never can do enough. That's right. So my inkling is, because that's my problem, is I have a performance issue. And even you can get in performance issues with Christ. Am I doing enough for Christ? Well, I don't know. You see, you never can answer that question. So what you do, you just keep setting the bar higher and higher, and then before you know it, you're spinning 17 plates, and you're like, am I doing enough? I don't know. And so you never know. Because part of you and part of me has a performance identity. And so there's a lie inside of you. There's a lie inside of me. And the lie is, I have to keep performing. I have to keep performing. I have to keep performing. And you actually don't. Because Christ has already performed for you. And so that's what I had to learn. So deep down inside, what I would suggest is I would get a yellow pad or paper and write out, what lies do I believe about my performance? Why am I performing? And why do I keep setting the bar? Even in Christianity, you can do this. And keep setting the bar higher and higher, and it's never enough. And here's what happens. When you feel that you can't do it, I would beat myself up. And it's like, I should be doing more. And so the next day I'd go out and practice more. And I would practice for another hour. Maybe I'd run another mile. Or maybe I'd pitch another hour in the bullpen. Just to see if I could just get more. And that's the thing that happens if you start performing. You keep setting the bar. You're like, where does this end? It never ends. You just die. You just die of exhaustion because you just know where it doesn't end anywhere. And so my thing is, my hunch is you have a performance identity inside of you. And that needs to get out of you. So I would find out, what lies do I believe about my performance. I can tell you what mine were. If I don't perform, I'm not valuable. If I don't perform, I'm not lovable. If I don't perform, I don't get attention. That was my lies. You could have different ones, but you got to get it out of you. Because you know what will happen? You will exhaust yourself and kill yourself in the process of doing it. You'll become a workaholic. That's what will happen. That's what my tendency is, to be a workaholic. It never ends. When do you shut it off? I don't know. But that's my performance junk. You don't want to be like me. Please don't do that. But I have a hunch that's what's going on. Okay. How we good? Okay, go ahead. We done? Your last one? Okay.
Okay, I'm just trying to discern the season. I know God is bringing forth like youth and young adults into the group, and I see the hunger. I saw the hunger out there when people want a community, and I know that the enemy doesn't like a community, and so how can we keep a community strong? When it comes to following Christ, not just believing in Christ, but following, picking up your cross.
Yep.
How can we keep it strong and be aware, be alert?
Good point. Okay, so your quintessential chapter on that is John chapter 17. Sanctify them by the truth, Father, to keep them unified. Okay, here's the thing. How does unity happen? Unity happens when people are centralized on truth. And they have to believe the same things. You cannot have unity when people are believing that a man can have a baby. Okay, you're just not going to have unity with that, right? Or weird stuff like that abortion's okay or nothing like. You can't have unity with that. So what happens is, let's just take this. You have a unified group here, and they're all centralized on the truth. Okay. What will happen is, if someone doesn't believe that truth, it will start causing division. It happens in relationships, it happens in marriage. Someone doesn't believe the truth. And when they don't believe the truth, then they start spreading that. And then it becomes a cancer and it starts dividing. So what Christ was asking is that when he was praying for the disciples, he was praying that sanctify them by your truth. Make them all on the same page as far as truth. Now, look, there's disagreements in Christianity. Don't get me wrong. There's secondary and tertiary issues that we can disagree on. One of the main plain things you can't disagree on. Like Jesus is God. that he sacrificed himself on the cross, that he's coming back, the Trinity. You cannot not believe in those things. So at the end of the day, truth is what centralizes and unifies. So that's what you have to keep in front of everybody. The tendency now is they'll say, you know what? We just need to drop our theological distinctives. We all love Jesus and let's sing Kumbaya. Loving Jesus is not theology. That's an emotion. Right? And so you do not drop your theological distinctives, because if you do, you will lose unity. So Christ is saying that unity is built on truth, not emotion. Okay? But that's the new trend in the churches. Hey, we don't want to hold to everyone to the same standard. Let's just drop it. And if do you love Jesus? Okay, that's enough. That's not enough. That is not enough. And so don't get fooled by that. So it's always truth. Truth, 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 truth. Okay?
And how do you work with a new believer that comes in the group and they just...
Yeah. So truth seeking is the key. We got people in our church that are truth seeking. They're not even believers, but they're truth seeking. They want to know the truth. And God bless them. They're wanting to know the truth. That's the difference. Versus someone that we've had people come to our church, adults, and they are not seeking the truth. They're here to cause division. They're here to push their own agenda and some weird, crazy theology that they're pushing. And we spot them a mile away. But truth seekers are different. And see, truth seeking, you could be at any level. You could be an unbeliever. You could be a new believer. You could be a mature believer. As long as they're truth seeking, then everyone's on the same page. Because I may not know everything, but I want to know. I'm truth seeking. That's unity right there with truth seeking. It's the disunity comes from people not really. They're not buying. They're selling. They're selling their own agenda, right? That's when you know that's causing problems. So it doesn't matter where they're at on the ledger as far as their truth seeking. And that's how we're all supposed to be, right? Okay, man. We had a good night. It's almost 9 o'clock. Wow. That's amazing. Jeremy, anybody have any announcements before we get out of here? Okay? You got your class Sunday, right? Okay. Anyone else? We all good? Okay. Yes, go ahead. What do you got?
I'm sorry. I know everyone wants to go home.
You're killing these guys, man. They're wanting to go home.
I'm going to have to wait just a little bit.
You got a quick one?
Yeah, this is quick. So, okay, when it comes to being prophesied over, a lot of times you'll see that in Pentecostal churches.
Yes, you will. Yeah.
Right? Are denominations with faulty theology still used, or are they still spoken through? Can I get a word of knowledge or, prophecy through someone who's from a Pentecostal church,
sure,
for instance? And does this connect to Matthew 7:22 at all?
Yeah, well, you can, because even in the most craziest of all places, God can speak through that venue. If he can speak through a donkey, he can speak through a donkey, okay? And if it's a Pentecostal church or a hyper-charismatic church, can God use? Absolutely. Can people get saved? Absolutely. That's not his endorsement of the theology, right? But it's God saying, I can use whatever means I want to use. You can't put God in a box. And if he can use donkeys, he can use that too. Okay? He spoke to a donkey, right? Okay.
So buy a donkey.
So sometimes a donkey will speak to you, and you better listen to the donkey, okay? Sometimes. All right, let's pray. Let's get you out of here, man. Father, thank you, Lord, for all that you're doing in our lives, and the folks here are truth seekers and are looking for the answers in life. And Lord, I just pray you grant them wisdom, grant them direction, grant them their understanding of their identity and who you've made them, so they can be the person you want them to be, and do what you want them to do, and how they were designed to it. And so, Father, show that to them, lead them in that path, and help them to continue to seek your truth. Bless them now as they go, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. God bless you guys. All right, man. What else we need to do? Anything? Clean up? Anything? Swat the mosquitoes? Do you see the mosquitoes running around? Holy smokes.
The last 2 rows of chairs. Praise God. Yeah. We haven't seen it, babe. All we gotta do is